cheapest is not always the best, especially when it comes to investing. Hello, and welcome to another episode of Connecting the Dollars. I'm Emily Agosto. I'm here with Amanda Vaught, and let's kick this off. Well, I'll kick it off with a little story I've told on the podcast before, but you may or may not remember hearing about this. So back in college, I used to work at a hardware store, an Ace Hardware. So many times people would come in for a hammer, and there we had like a $3 or $5 hammer, and then we had like a $20-ish hammer. And I tried to offer the more expensive hammer. I was not trying to be like salesy, but it's just a better quality hammer. And from my experience, I knew that it would do the job better. But a lot of times, most times, people would just opt for the cheaper one. And then 9 times out of 10 come back later that day or the next day and buy the more expensive one. So the moral of that story is that if they would have bought the more expensive one first, they would have actually saved money because they wouldn't have wasted money on the cheaper one. So that's a very straightforward little anecdote, but it really is something that we see in a lot of areas of life. When it comes to investing, you could be wasting a lot more money than just on a $3 hammer. So Amanda's got a few ideas here, some specifics that she's going to jump into using this concept within the market and your investments.
The place where we see people conflating cheapest with being the best a lot is in indexing. People online and news stories, they always say, oh, indexing is best. It's the cheapest. Yes, we'll say indexing is one of the cheapest ways to invest. And yes, there are some definite pros to it, but there's other cons that can get glossed over a lot of times. So, one is that if you look at the financial studies that they do on indexing versus active management, where somebody is actively picking which stocks or bonds to include, on average, an index is going to perform better when we are looking at large cap US stocks. So that's only one part of the market, right? That doesn't include international emerging markets. That doesn't include small and mid cap stocks. It doesn't include bonds. And all of these things are in your portfolio, possibly, right? If they're appropriate for a diversified portfolio. And so indexing may work well in one area of the market, but maybe not so well in another one. I think especially in the bond market, the vast majority of active funds outperform the bond index, just looking at the data. So, indexing maybe isn't best. It just depends what index you're talking about, right? The other thing is that's a major impact on returns in a portfolio is your allocation. So by allocation, I mean the amount you have in the US versus the world, the amount you have in stocks versus bonds, the amount you have in large cap versus small. These allocation decisions can have a significant impact on your overall portfolio performance. Just buying an index, which is generic advice we see out there, isn't telling you which index to buy, but how much of it to buy. The other thing with indexes, especially lately, is that the major ones in the United States, the S&P 500, the NASDAQ, have become incredibly concentrated in a small number of companies because they are market cap weighted. So they have a larger percentage of the index is dedicated to larger companies. And not only do we have this concentration in a small number of stocks, but it's a concentration in a small number of stocks within one sector, the tech AI sector. So a lot of people tout the benefits of indexing because it gives you broad diversification, which it can, depending on the type of index you're buying. But sometimes it doesn't, right? Because you're getting this concentration instead of a diversification. So understanding what index you're buying can be very important. The third point I wanted to make about indexing is that investing can be personal, depends on the person. So say you don't want a certain type of company in your investment portfolio, you don't like a certain CEO because of their political views, and you don't want that person's company in your investment portfolio, buying an index is not going to help you with that issue. The same thing with somebody who says they have their investments and they would like to have impact with their investments. There are, actively managed mutual funds that advocate for companies to be more environmentally friendly, to have different social policies for the employees. Different religious groups advocate for different types of issues at companies. None of these are addressed with the index. So I think those are the main highlights about indexing that can be cons for a number of people. So it's
Yeah.
not always best that it's the cheapest choice.
You get what you pay for. Maybe that's a little bit oversimplified, but and especially doesn't really tie into the personalization of it all. I'll just end with a quick personal story, but just in general, a story about how cheapest might not always be best. So I'm a CPA. I'm in the world of taxes. I have a lot of clients who have previously gone to, a generic chain firm to get their taxes done. And when I take over, I'll find several credits or deductions are not taken. And honestly, those chains are not that cheap these days. But so basically, going to a cheaper chain versus someone like me who is a professional in the field for several years, and I might cost a little bit more. But what you're getting is some personalized insight into your tax return. I'm not just someone you could see once a year. You can talk to me or whoever your tax preparer might be throughout the year when you're thinking about something that could affect your taxes, like taking a new job, selling a home, buying a new home, all kinds of things, having a child that will affect your taxes. So in that case, you are saving money by paying a little bit more upfront. Because if you paid a change to your taxes and they missed a bunch of things, then you're really losing out at that point. So
yeah, I say it's like your money friend. It's a relationship with a person. And yes, it's about your money, but I've heard of people who go to the chain place and they literally forget to tell them they had a baby. I know you could be very exhausted and things slip your mind all the time. But if you have a relationship with a professional, right, you're like, yes, I know you had a baby because it's come up because you've had a conversation. And you double check things like that once you get to know people and what's going on with their situation. So it's a different type of service.
Yep. Questions to ask, what changes that might have occurred throughout the year. It's just a better relationship. I like the term money friend. Let me be your money friend. And we could talk about all things personalized. You don't have to just get blanket advice from someone that maybe you only see once a year.
Yeah. I love to hear stories of people who try to get a better deal. I know we all do it, but some things can be worth paying for.
Yep. Next time you're at the Ace Hardware, think of me and maybe buy the nicer hammer. I don't know. Just splurge, treat yourself.
Yeah.
Might end up saving some money in the future.
I know. I just bought this extra expensive gourmet popcorn. I like to blend a little extra on food sometimes because, yes, it costs more, especially lately, but sometimes buying like just a little bit nicer food and you just enjoy it a little bit more.
I like that.
We'll find out soon if the cheapest one is best.
Yeah. Let us know your thoughts in the comments. Find us on social media at Propel Financial Advisors on Instagram and YouTube and Facebook. And we'll talk to you soon.
Okay, bye.
Bye.